Hello and welcome to Sectors Up Close. I'm David Pollard. Do the flavourings and fragrances of Europe's specialty chemicals companies have the smell of success about them? Well, we're discussing that question today with Joachim Klement, Head of Strategy at Panmure Liberum. Take a look at the European chemical sector as a whole, and the year-to-date performance is uninspiring, to say the least, if on a 5-year basis it has given some healthy returns. What excites our guest, though, is a recent turnaround in a core group of companies within that sector that cater to the food and cosmetics industries, names like Givaudan, Symrise, Kerry Group and Novozymes, driven by the fundamentals of stronger earnings. Well, Joachim Klement of Panmure Liberum is with me now. Welcome, Joachim. Many thanks for joining us today. Those companies that I just mentioned, they're up around 15% year to date in quite a surge. Why are we seeing that?
For the last 2 years, earnings margins, profit margins have been squeezed very, very heavily. At the beginning, because of higher natural gas and energy prices, which are the raw materials for their flavors and fragrances, and then the cost of living crisis that changed consumer behavior. Now, for the first time in 2 years, we see positive earnings surprises again, and investors react to that by piling into these stocks.
So input prices are down, inflation is down, but is consumer demand up? And particularly in Germany, which is struggling with its economy at the moment.
Well, consumer demand is improving. We have seen that consumers have switched to more lower margin products, cheaper products as part of the cost of living crisis. And that has meant that these specialty chemical companies have also had more demand for lower margin products. But we now see more and more demand for all kinds of reasons that investors are switching back to functional foods, multivitamins and more higher margin products that benefit those specialty chemical companies.
So one company that has higher margins is Givaudan, the Swiss fragrances and flavourings company. But there is some legal jeopardy there with Givaudan. It is facing lawsuits in the US over allegations of price fixing and cartels and so on, along with a number of other companies.
It has been a really good performer this year, but it has a lot of issues. You mentioned the legal issues. The other issues that I see with Givaudan is the mix of earnings that they have presented so far in their recovery. Their entire recovery is very much driven by the snacks business, which is exactly the business that we think in the longer term is not the most attractive one, because more and more countries are cracking down with sugar taxes and trying to switch consumers to healthier consumer habits. So putting all these things together, Givaudan is probably a bit expensive for what it is and hasn't got the best outlook in that part of the group.
Now, another company that you do very much like, it seems, is Novozymes, and this was born of the merger between Christian Hansen and Novozymes, and they specialise in, I believe, biosolutions across a range of sectors, pharma, agriculture, food and so on. Yes. Tell us about Novozymes.
Yes, so the good thing about them is they're not just a supplier to food and beverage industries, but also to the pharmaceutical industry and to agriculture, as you say. And so the earnings are much more diversified and at the same time have much more upside at this point in time. They have more cyclical earnings because their products are higher end, they're costlier, they're more expensive for users to buy. But at the same time, they are primarily exposed to trends that we now see with the rise of literally the company down the road from the old Novozymes, namely Novo Nordisk, and the GLP-1, Wegovy, Ozempic, weight loss drugs that change consumer habits and demand for certain food items.
So you talk extensively in your notes about the challenges, but also the opportunities of GLP-1 drugs. So tell us a little bit more about that and which way you see the scales tipping in favour of the opportunities or indeed the challenges.
If more people take those weight loss drugs, what will happen is that it restricts the consumption for snacks and sugary drinks and these kinds of things. At the same time, if you experience rapid weight loss, people suffer from malnutrition, have vitamin or minerals deficiencies, or they lose muscle mass. And there is a new trend emerging where companies design food that are geared towards compensating some of these side effects from those weight loss drugs. And Novozymes is actually very, very well positioned to be the key player in this emerging trend.
Now, you mentioned that Givaudan, in your opinion, is a little bit overvalued. But actually, that just seems to be a general opinion of these specialty chemicals companies, that they're all looking rather overvalued at the moment. What's your view there?
They are all very expensive. This is mostly a reflection of their defensive earnings profile. Very solid, very stable earnings growth. Essentially, what we see is that investors and the market overall have recognized which companies have a good and solid earnings outlook, and they've bid those up, but not yet to a level where I would say they're strictly overvalued. They're just at the similar level that we've seen over the last 5 years.
OK, Joachim Klement, Head of Strategy at Panmure Liberum, many thanks for sharing those thoughts with us today. And that is your roundup of the European specialty chemical sector. I'm David Pollard, and this is Reuters.